Welcome to Bold Thinking, entrepreneurial stories honestly told. In a world full of chaos, this is a podcast about the people making positive change in the world, using bold thinking to transform businesses and themselves, and we need that at the moment. We were just talking a little bit earlier amongst ourselves here about our love of dogs, and then George is coming in now. So it all started with a bamboo dog bowl. George Bramble co-founded sustainable brand Beco Pets 12 years ago. But as you can imagine, the business has grown dramatically over the past year. And as people in their millions have made pets part of their everyday lives during lockdown. So welcome to George, and thank you for joining me today.
It's great to be on the show. Thank you very much for having me.
That's brilliant. So let's start with the most important questions. I'm assuming you are a dog owner yourself.
Yes, I've got a black Labrador called Taka, who is chief product tester at Beco. She's the benefit of working in pet businesses is that obviously we welcome as many dogs into the office as possible. So Taka's here today, and I apologise in advance if she barks in the background because we have a warehouse below us, and any time one of the warehouse team come in their high-vis jacket, despite the fact Taka's known them for years, she barks. She doesn't like high-vis jacket. So, I apologise in advance.
Maybe there's a new business idea in that.
Yeah, something that's high-vis but not to the dog, yeah.
Tell us a bit more about Beco Pets and why you founded it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I founded Beco back in 2009, and I'd sort of studied geography and environmental sciences at university, brought up with dogs, spent a lot of my childhood holidays sort of out and about and in remote places like the Outer Hebrides. So I kind of built this love for the environment and dogs. And I'd left university, and I was actually working in the drinks industry for a big multinational. And I knew that I wanted to start my own business, and I was just looking for an idea. And it was just off the back of a sort of big recession in 2007, 2008. And so I was kind of looking for a business that, was fairly recession proof. And dogs and pets, certainly that, and also pandemic proof. But I always knew I wanted to do something that was causing as least impact to the environment as possible. And so we looked at the pet business and thought recession proof, and no one was really focusing on environmental products. So that's kind of how we started. And our mission then, which is still the same today, is really to create the best possible pet products whilst doing as little harm to the environment as possible.
Yeah, it's a really great ethos. So how do you actually do that? I mean, how do you actually create environmentally eco-friendly dog products? What does that mean?
Well, I think at the moment there's obviously a lot of buzzwords like eco-friendly flying around, and the reality is, if you're in business, you have an environmental impact. So it's kind of understanding that and doing as little as much as possible to reduce that. But for example, you mentioned the Beco bowl that we started with, which is basically a bowl made from bamboo. So we go to chopstick factories and get the offcuts of the bamboo chopsticks that are going to be burnt or thrown away. And we use that powder, we grind it down into a powder and compression mold it into a material, essentially a bioplastic. We mix it with cornstarch plastic, and we create a product that's made from renewable materials, will last like a normal bowl, but is even dishwasher friendly. So it's just a direct replacement to petroleum plastic. So that's an example of the kind of thing we make. We also make soft dog toys out of recycled plastic bottles. Over 50% of plastic ever produced has been produced in the last 15 years. And I think if you took all the plastic produced each year, it would be something like 5 rubbish bags for every foot of coastline around the world. There's that much. So it's a crazy amount. And actually, if it's out there, the good thing to do is reuse it. So we use recycled plastic bottles to make soft toys for dogs.
So with something like Beco Pets, you started out with an idea. You wanted to work in pets. You've got obviously an amazing love for pets, and these bamboo bowls are brilliant. So how do you literally start off something like that? You have a great idea. Did you start by doing little shows and selling products? How do you get from where you were to where you are today in 12 years?
So we've grown fairly organically, so kind of haven't taken big investment, didn't have a sort of really structured business plan that we took to investors and said, lend us £500,000 or whatever, and off we go. We sort of got out there, used savings. My then business partner was a industrial product designer based in the Far East, and he was sourcing products for other companies. So we found materials and batteries, and we thought, well, let's put a bit of money into it. I was still working a full-time job, and so we bought the product, and in the evenings I'd be packing orders. And I remember one incident, I think our first order of bowls arrived in the UK, and we'd found a customer to sell them to. We had 18,000 dog bowls going out the next day, and they arrived, and the dog bowls arrived, and the stickers were on upside down, because obviously the factory workers couldn't read English, and so we had 18,000 bowls with the stickers upside down. So we had to, my business partner and myself were working in a family warehouse, and we had to unsticker them and resticker them. But of course, we thought we'd get through 18,000 dog bowls in 48 hours working through the night, and quite quickly realised after 8 hours that we needed some help. So we grabbed some workers from the warehouse next door and pleaded whether they could work overtime for us, and we managed to get them done just in the nick of time and sent out. But those are kind of, lots of sort of cutting corners and trying to make it work. But I guess those are times you look back on and fondly now, but at the time it was hard work.
I wonder how many stickers you could manage to do each in an hour.
I know. It was, and it was worse because you peeled the sticker. You had to try and peel the sticker off without ripping it, and then take off the residue glue and then put it back on. I mean, it was awful. Yeah.
I love stories like that when you're talking to entrepreneurs. It really grounds you, doesn't it? So one of the reasons we started this podcast was obviously looking back at last year. It was a really difficult year for many businesses and people. And we were talking with the crowd, and we were saying, wouldn't it be great if we did something around bowl thinking, where actually you look for the helpers, it's new ideas, new inspirational things. So what does bowl thinking mean to you as an entrepreneur and with a Beco business brand?
Well, I think it's been really tough through the pandemic for many businesses, obviously, and for many startups. But I think there's been loads of great stories of businesses pivoting, whether it's a restaurant that started doing home delivery and then actually realised that have got a great business off the back of that. And I think bold thinking for me is not necessarily having a revolutionary idea. I think a lot of people you speak to who, I'd love to set up my own business, but I just haven't got a good idea. It might be something that's already out there. It's just finding a way to do it better. But bold thinking for me is really just getting out there and having a go. And in the early days, you talked about how did we get the sales? Yeah, we went to shows, but we also packed the car up with product and drove to Europe. And I did a road trip for 2 weeks just because none of these distributors would take my phone calls, or if they always get through to a gatekeeper. So I'd literally turn up. Or I'd call them and say, I'm just down the road. Do you mind if I pop in? And of course, business owners find it hard to turn you down when you've driven 1,000 miles to see them. And that's the kind of bold thinking in a way. Just get out there, be brave, try things. And in my business, I tried sort of the old cliche, fail, but fail fast. We kind of do follow that mantra. It's like, I want people to have a go. I want people to make mistakes. It's just learn from those mistakes and move on. And I guess in small business, a lot of in the pandemic, I guess some of the smaller businesses have done better because they've been able to change the way they're doing things, be dynamic, try things. And I think that's what, for any budding entrepreneur, just protect your downside, but equally go for it. If you think you've got an idea, just go for it and give it a go. The way I protected my downside is I was basically moonlighting. So I was working a full day and then working at night. And I think you can still do that.
That was when you first set the business up?
Yeah, absolutely. So some long shifts. So working an 8-9 hour day, and then sort of then working on the business in the evening. But the benefit of that, yes, it's very tiring, but ultimately, if things don't go well, you haven't lost your job.
What's been your boldest idea for Beco beyond founding it, and how did you make it happen?
Boldest idea beyond founding it. What have we done recently that's been quite bold? I guess lots of things. I guess quitting my job, but there was a big move in 2016 where we basically had toys and accessories and poop bags, and that was kind of our main business. So, compostable poop bags, toys and accessories, and there was an opportunity. We always wanted to be a lifestyle brand, and a lot of our consumers and customers kept coming to us and saying, "Would you launch a dog food brand or a dog food range?" And we said, "Oh, absolutely not. We don't want to do it." And we looked at the investment, and we had to spend a fortune on packaging because you had to make. I think at one stage we had 10 years worth of 12 kilo bags for our dog food, because obviously you had to do sort of a 20,000 unit run, and we weren't selling that many units to start with. But and we were worried about dog food because we're going up against the big guys. We're basically going up against Mars and Unilever and people with very deep pockets. But we did a load of research and basically realized that all the dog food brands were focusing on natural. Well, not all of them, but a lot of them were focusing on natural, and they were focusing on high meat content, but no one was really focusing on where that meat came from. So food provenance, traceability, whether the animals had a happy life before being produced into dog food. And so we decided actually, we would go for it. And it cost a lot of money. And at the time it was fairly touch and go because it took up a lot of our cash flow. But it's been the best decision we've made. And now we've grown sales we keep growing sales month on month. I think last year through the pandemic, our sales of our wild boar recipe grew 237%, which is amazing. And yeah, we're really pleased we did it. But at the time it was quite scary because of the fact that it took up so much cash flow. But I think if you believe in the concept or the idea, then going for it and pivoting in what you make as a business, because it would have been easy just for us to say, "Oh, we'll just keep doing toys and accessories and that's fine." But actually the customer, if there's demand for it, give it a go.
Yeah. And I think as well, with so many people having puppies in the last year and a half because of lockdown, I basically, when we had our dog about a year and a half ago, I got a dog trainer in for an hour and she said, "What are you feeding him?" And I sort of like named a few like big brands, and she was shouldn't be doing that, shouldn't be feeding him this. I feed my dog raw chicken and like raw hams and raw this and I'm raw that. And I suddenly went into a frenzy. I thought, "Oh my God, I'm killing my dog. What should I do?" It's like, it's easy when you've got a new baby because it's all really simple. But a new dog, it's like, where do you get the advice from? And I suddenly think the last 6 weeks I've been feeding him like rubbish, according to her.
Well, it is. And that's the thing. I guess the problem is in the pet food industry is there hasn't been the regulation that's saying baby food. So there's some manufacturers that have got away with producing really poor quality food for a very long time. Now I'm pleased to say that it's changing completely. There's lots of good dog food brands out there. But what we found through the pandemic, which is really interesting, is of those new pet owners, dog owners, and there's a lot of Londoners, there's been an 84% increase in pet ownership. And of those pet owners, over 50% of them are millennial and Gen Z. So they're younger generation, pre-kids, buying their dogs. And what we found is they really do care. They don't just care about the quality of the product, but they also want to know, they buy into mission-led brands. So they want to know where the ingredients have come from and what that environmental impact is potentially, or whether you're giving back as a business. So I think it's the new dog owners, I think, are actually an easier dog ownership for us to sell to, because they kind of believe, I guess it's essentially the baby boomers who are the older generations that are less into that mission-led brand.
So that's a really good point to talk about next. Is what do you think people want or need from brands today?
Well, I think people are looking for transparency and honesty in brands. I think there's a big shift to that, and I think people will question what a brand's environmental impact is, regardless of what they do. People will want to know. You need to be thinking about that. I think people, well, certainly within the pet space, are looking for quality. I wonder whether we're kind of going full circle where in the past, my parents' generation, post-war, they were brought up on rations, and so they really did buy quality. So, and the old adage, buy cheap, buy twice. I think consumers are sort of moving back to that. So they buy a product and they look after it. And we're moving away from this disposable consumer culture. That's what I'm seeing, or I'm hoping anyway. So hopefully we'll see that as well. Have you found with any of the brands you work with that any patterns in that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a real, we're working with quite a few outdoor pursuits brands at the moment, and they're all about repair and recycle, as well as new ranges, as well as sustainability. And I think you're right. I think the last year has made everybody think about their own footprint, their consumption, and how they live, and the meaning. And I think fundamentally the meaning of sort of health and time. I was speaking to one of my friends the other day that is really chief staff officer in one of the massive companies in London. And she was saying that this whole period is just people are at home more with their dogs and their kids. They're walking more. They're not working less. They're just working smarter than the big commute to London. So I think there's been a massive shift in brands and thinking.
Yeah. And fitness and well-being. And yeah, well, I think one of the great things that's come out of the pandemic, and actually I have to say I've been not guilty of not carrying this on, but I'm hoping people will, they picked up a hobby or a sort of pursuit or something outside of work because they have that extra time without the commute, that they carry that on afterwards. And then I remember through the first lockdown, I started exercising a lot more, but I haven't, sadly. Now I'm back in the office.
Apart from dog walking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I've sort of been running with Taka 3 mornings a week, and we're both fairly lazy. So I mean, it's funny if Labradors. You see these dogs that pull their owners around the common, and that's what I was kind of hoping for. But Taka tends to sort of lollop about 10 yards behind me taking shortcuts. It isn't very helpful.
So we've got a ginger cockapoo who's got more energy than a little stick of dynamite. I mean, he literally is just I can't run to keep up with him. I just have to watch him go and delight in his little deer-like movements around the park.
Well, maybe I'll have, I think cockapoos and cocker spaniels, they just keep going and going. You see them pulling their owners around the common.
Yeah, he's bonkers. So, I mean, I think the whole sort of pet industry has been a real, I think you're right, it's been a lot of reinvention. I think people are loving animals. They really want them to be part. They're absolutely, man's best friends. So how optimistic are you about Beco? And what's your next steps as a brand and business?
Well, I'm very excited about the future. I think in the last, it's been over 10 years since we started, and it's been a bit of a struggle. Like to start with, we were producing a bamboo dog bowl. I remember being at our first show, and a lady came up and said, I love the look of your bowls. And I said, oh, fantastic. And she's handing over the money, she's buying a couple of bowls. And I said, they're made from the offcuts of chopsticks, bamboo. She said, why would I want to buy a bowl made from bamboo? She looked at me as if I was crazy. Why would you want a plastic replacement bowl? And I think fast forward 10 years, obviously the market's shifted towards looking for plastic replacements, looking for products like that. And I think as a result, I think we've grown very quickly over the last 2 or 3 years. But we've still got loads of great plans that we want to launch in dog treats, or we're going to launch in dog treats later this year. And I want to try and continue the growth. I'm not looking for a quick exit. I'm not looking to sell Beco in the short term. I'd love just to be sort of known as a brand within the pet industry that's sort of pioneering products that cause less harm, and and just making dogs and leaving, I guess, a legacy. Like, I want Beco to be here in the next 20 or 30 years, a kind of a business for the future. So continuing to build the business. With more products, but also just making sure that we feel like we're scratching the surface. Whilst we're a lot bigger than many brands, we're not a global player yet. We're not a pedigree chum.
It's interesting. I was chatting to you about a friend of mine that over the weekend that's helped about a year and a bit ago build a pet brand. And I said, oh, how's the pet brand going? And she said, you know what? We'd got a lot of investment. We had an amazing website. Brand was really cool. The name was really cool. We designed all these lovely little outfits for dogs and stuff like that, little coats and jackets and things, and quite expensive luxury brand. The only problem is there was no story. And I think, and there was no community. And I kept saying, I'm really concerned about that, because suddenly this very slick brand hit the market and went to various shows and stuff like that. And everyone was like, so what's this about, and how's it been going, and how's it all working? And I think people are really looking for the narrative and the story behind it. And I said to her, what's happened now? She went, well, it's just been totally shelved. And I said, it was interesting. I was chatting to you today about Beco Pet's been going for 12 years. And I said, I get the impression from George that it's been like a slow burn that's just caught fire and just been amazing over the last year and a half with a vast amount of story behind it. So what do you think it is for a brand to thrive? Because it feels like you've got a lot of great ingredients there, which you've looked back and joined the dots on, but actually, you know, there's a lot of stories and history there with the Beco brand.
Well, I think that's absolutely key, is having a story that's compelling and really engaging with your community. So in this day and age, it's actually a lot easier because you've got social media channels, but also, look, in the world, I was talking to someone the other day about what do I want to get back to, and I was like, face-to-face meetings, whether that's trade shows, consumer shows, going to see customers, because great that we can have a call over a virtual meeting or what have you, and you can meet lots of people, but it doesn't really replace sort of getting out there and meeting a customer and talking to them and engaging with them. And I think your first customer is your most important customer, and just make sure that you keep building one by one. And whilst it's been hard for us, I'm really proud of the way we built the business off loans and savings and not selling out to private equity or yet. I'm not saying that we won't ever, but really doing it the hard way. It's kind of, I guess, given us that, as you say, the story and the authenticity that you can't just buy.
The labels things is a classic.
Yeah.
And the fact you thought you could do it.
I know. It's there's a few more of those stories, but yeah.
I remember one of my friends, she had this idea to do these little doors, fairy doors, when you put them in your skirting boards. It's a door the fairy goes through, and she got her first order through and she got like 5,000 doors in her lounge. We still walked in and thought, we're going to do with all these bloody doors.
Fairy door, fantastic. My daughter would love a fairy door.
And that's what I said to her. I said, look, you know, we can all, as creatives and brand builders, which is what, you know, Honest does in principle. I said, but you've all got to have a story, a passion, a legacy, an honesty behind it. And suddenly just jumping on a bandwagon, people are just like, really? How's that all work? You know, we need to make it credible.
Yeah, and I think I don't know, maybe we'll see the world change, but there's been a lot of businesses, it seems to me, like not making money but growing very quickly, become the be all and end all. And the worry with that is 1 in 20 businesses will do really well and the others won't. And if it's a dangerous world to be in. So I just think, you know, growing slower is not necessarily a bad thing. Like, because you can learn by your mistakes, you grow. There's a lot to be said for being around for a long time and building a community. So yeah, I think that's the way. Hopefully, business should be going. Don't think you need £1 million to start a business. You can do it on a shoestring. If you do that and you grow it and you are passionate about what you do, there's ways of funding business other than necessarily taking big lump sum and trying to grow it to X million over 1 year.
Yeah, I've heard that story many, many times. I think one of the big cosmetics brands sold about a year ago. And I remember the entrepreneur saying, oh, everyone said to me it's an overnight success, but it's a 25-year overnight success.
Yeah.
I love
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Very true. Very true. I mean, unless you're in the tech world, there's very rarely an overnight success, and even then, at least 2 years of hard work into it before anyone's heard of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, George, thanks for joining us today. Really, really enjoyed that. And thank you to listening to Bold Thinking Entrepreneurial Stories Honestly Told. If this episode has got you thinking, share your comments on LinkedIn, Twitter or Instagram, or you can contact us at hello@thehonestbrand.com. Join me next time to hear from somebody else who's making positive change in the world. And thanks, George. I really love the Beco pets. Really one of my favourite brands.
It's been great to talk to you, and I really appreciate your time. It's been a lot of fun.